First off, my name's Ryan, and I'm the vice principal, one of the vice principals at Metro Prep. I've been there since 2001, and I love working at Metro. I'm the director of Smith, which is one of our arts programs there, and do a lot of drama and music and humanities courses. And I think first, people need to know a little bit about how Metro is different from other independent schools. So we started in 1982, and it was started by a teacher, not a board, not a conglomerate or a corporation. It was started by a teacher, Wayne McKelvey. And Wayne was a geography history buff, and he was unsatisfied with what was going on, I think, in the public system, and decided to go a different route. And over the years, he started a school that I think is emblematic of things that all of us who go to the school, work at the school, are proud of. And what are those things? Metro stands for many things, but one of the things is we are different because we approach education in, I think, a much more loving way than other schools do. We try to avoid the stereotypical stuffiness or elitism that we see in other schools. We go from grade 7 to 12, and we have no uniform. We go on a first name basis with our students, and everyone tells us who works at the school over the years or who has gone to the school over the years that we are like a big family. And I think that's what we are all most proud of, is that connection that our school has with all the families and the kids who go there. And it starts from the moment they walk in the door till the moment they leave. And when they do leave and graduate, it's very tough for the teachers to see them go, and it's very tough for the students, and that's because of the bonds that we make. Some of the technical aspects of Metro that you should know. Metro is semestered, so we're on the semester system. We offer 5 70-minute periods a day. That's usually a little more or one more than the typical private school. Most schools have 4 periods a day. We offer 5. Why? We do that. I think it's in the best interest of the kids to be able to choose electives or have a study hall as they get older, especially in grade 10, 11, and 12, when the courses get a little more academically challenging. We have a wide range or variety of courses that we offer in both the sciences and humanities. We're very diverse, and we're proud of that. I think our school looks like Toronto, and since we're called Metropolitan Preparatory Academy, we should. I think a lot of private schools don't look like Toronto. And so we're a Toronto school. We love sports. We have a very strong athletic program, and our university acceptance rate is 99%. So really, the goal of our school is to prepare your child for post-secondary. And we have students who have graduated and gone to all sorts of wonderful universities and colleges. Here's the thing: if your son or daughter doesn't want to go into law school and you want them to go into law school, our job is to convince you that we know what they love and what they want. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges for parents, especially parents who are considering sending their child to private school, is how do we balance what our child really loves and what we are investing in? And while we understand that the amount of money that someone invests in private school is exorbitant, and it's important to value that. But our job as educators is to pay attention to what your child wants and their desires and their dreams. So given that, we set it up so that Sue, our head of guidance, and so Sue's here, Sue Dillon, and Sue and I have been working together for almost 20 years. Sue's job essentially is to start meeting with the kids right from the moment they walk in the door, and then throughout the course of study, she meets with them and talks about what do they really love, what do they want, and plans a course of study that suits them. And that's when the changes start happening, and the choices that they have to make, which are really difficult, especially when you're 17, to know what you want to do. it's hard. And so Sue's there with all the other teachers on board, having meetings and talking about what this particular student needs and wants. And then we'll talk to the parents and say, you know, yes, your son is ready for medicine. Perfect, you know, doing well. But if they're not, and they really want to be a chef, you know, we want to sort of push that to the parents and say, do you really know what they love and what they want? And I think that's something I'm very proud of, that our school kind of accepts. So there's a few other things about Metro. We have a September to June calendar, very similar to any other school. And, you know, other than the typical questions that parents might have, you know, how many kids are in a class? Usually there's 12 to 15 students in a class. It depends on the particular course. There may be more in a gym class or a drama class from time to time, and there may be smaller classes in the more specific courses, such as, you know, grade 12 politics or philosophy. It really depends on the year. And that's one of the most common questions we have. And then finally, where are we? Well, we're in North York now. We're in the heart of North York. We're at 1 Duncan Mill in a beautiful new campus. And we literally built the school within this building. All of us, the teachers and administration, we worked to build it. And it's quite a beautiful place to study and learn. And so if you are joining us tonight and you want to see the school and you want to take a tour, just reach out to us and you can come and see the classrooms and all the facilities. Without further ado, I'll introduce everyone. So I've already mentioned Sue. So Sue Dillon's our head of guidance and also set this whole thing up. And Joanna Johnson's with us. Joanna is my travel partner. We take students all over the place, all over the world to experience things and learn from that. And she's also head of politics and history. And the two most important people I think here tonight, other than those of us, those of you who are joining us, are our alumni, Stephanie Ivanov and Luca Zigamanis. And Stephanie and Luca graduated 2 years ago. So I guess what, 2018, 2019? Yeah. And I taught both of them. Joanna and I have taught both of them, and Sue has worked with them since they were in grade 7. So they were at Metro. We call them long haulers, or we used to call them
lifers.
The lifers. I think long haulers is a COVID reference. I apologize. Yeah, lifers. So Stephanie and Luca, we're talking 6 years at Metro. So we asked them and they've been gracious enough to join us. And I want to thank them. Stephanie was part of the Smith program. So she's really into the arts and visual arts and drama. And I never will forget the first day I met Stephanie in the hallway. And Luca was co-valedictorian. We had 2 valedictorians that year, and his good friend Haikun. And Luca was valedictorian for his class and is now at the University of Toronto. And his sister Anna is also in grade 10 at Metro. So welcome everyone, and welcome parents. Okay, now we can start with questions. So these are written questions, just so all the parents know. These are not random questions, and we've given these questions to Stephanie and Luca ahead of time. But the thing about Metro is as I said, we're like a family. So tonight the goal is to have a conversation that feels real and natural. And if at any point you really want to ask a question, you can write it in the chat, and don't feel like you're interrupting, because that's essentially how Metro is. The interruptions constantly so that we can actually deal with what's most important, as opposed to following a written plan. So if I could start with Luca, that would be great. So the first question, Luca, I have is, what did you appreciate most about the school during your time there? And how has your perspective changed now that you've had a little bit of distance from Metro?
Right. So when I was at Metro, I came from grade 5. I was in public elementary school, And I was very used to the big classrooms, kind of not active learning, just answering questions, writing down, and to the point where I was kind of like, not engaged in my learning. And when I went to Metro, the first feeling I got was teachers calling them by their first name. And that really made me respect them more as a person, and made me realize that they're not just there to give me my grades and go on with my day. They're there to learn from and to help motivate me and guide who I am. And so with that, also with the way that they taught me how to learn, and the way that I learned how to think from classes, how it was more independent learning. And you can take the course material and it's set out in front of you and you can absorb it. But the way you think about it and solve problems and how you can relate it to real world problems, whether in politics, looking back at history, or the math and sciences, that really changed the way I thought and they changed the way I learned. And now that I'm 2 years removed from Metro and I'm in a university environment, I miss that one-on-one meetings with my teachers, being like, I just learned this topic, I'm not really understanding it. Can we just sit down and have a conversation? And I would learn so much from those one-on-one conversations. And that open conversation was fantastic. And I definitely miss that now more that I don't have that same environment.
Good. Thank you, Luca. Stephanie, same question. What did you appreciate most about the school, and how has your perspective changed since you've been away?
Very similar to what Lucas said with the small classrooms. With that, I was able to connect with the teachers more, and they actually get to know you as a person rather than just a number in a classroom, which is something that I didn't experience at any of my previous schools. And also because of those small classes, they always encouraged you to join extracurriculars. I joined almost every sports team at Metro, which is something that I never would have got to do at my old schools. And I went from never playing volleyball, Joanna actually being the coach, to grade 12 being the captain there. So it gave a lot more opportunities than I would have had at any other public school. And just with how it's changed, for me, not much has changed because I still have the relationship that I had when I went there. I feel just as close with the teachers. I can't go visit because of COVID. I wish I could. But I still know that whenever I do come back, whether that's a month from now or like 5 years from now, I'll still have that same connection with the faculty there.
Thank you. Thank you. Joe, I'd like to ask you this question. We'll start with you and then we'll go to our alumni. What, to the best of your knowledge, differentiates the school from other schools?
I would say, and I've said this numerous times, I wouldn't be working at another private school. If I wasn't teaching here, I wouldn't be working at another private school. I don't think what I value from Metro is the incredible diversity of students, either by race, socioeconomic background, religion, country, where they've come from, language, but also the knowledge, the perspective. It's one of the most passionate groups of teachers I've ever worked with. I've taught, I know a lot of teachers. I've never been so challenged by the faculty or by the students or by what's going on in that dynamic. And I think that diversity is the thing that brings true education, especially for the humanities. Without that visual diversity, that real diversity sitting in those chairs, the students aren't getting the education that they deserve. And in all fairness, they require to operate in the world we have today.
Thank you. Nice. And Sue, what's something that you think makes Metro different from other schools?
In my perspective and opinion, I just feel like Metro is such a, to me, an organic experience. It's just really real. It's not just a job. It's more like
encompassing other realms of our being as well. Like we go into work, we interact with our students, and we continue to have relationships with these students once they're all gone. I mean, credit Luca and Stephanie being here right now. I mean, but this happens year to year to year. And that's the rewarding part, that it's not just going in day to day and doing a job. Like we're all committed. There's a commitment there by everybody. And I think the students really appreciate that. Moving forward, you know, they're always reaching out, and they, like Stephanie said, I'd love to come visit. And right now I can't. But, you know, it's those moments that really bring it back full circle.
Nice. Yeah, I concur. Steph, what about you? What makes Metro different? Something maybe other than Joanna and Sue have touched on. What's something else that makes the school different?
Something more specific, I would say, is the Smith program.
Okay.
So do you want me to like expand on?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Ryan started Smith. It's the like drama department at our school. Sorry. So basically, Ryan's been directing plays at Metro, I think, since you started working there. And the arts program, it brings together like students who can audition for it. And at the end of the year, we put on a play. We work on it from September all the way through till May. And it's just such an incredible experience to be a part of. Everyone who's in it is so committed and so just like genuinely wants to be there and wants to help each other improve in acting or drawing or working behind the scenes. Whatever it is, all of us want to help each other with it, and just do something incredible at the end of the year, which makes it so worth it.
Mm-hmm. And we had some good times, didn't we? Yeah, really good times. Luca, what about you? What for you made Metro different? You were involved in a lot of sports on top of your academics. What makes it different for you when you look back on it?
I think to piece together a little bit of what everyone's saying, it kind of reflects how I feel. As Stephanie was saying, Smith program was a very interconnected program. I mean, I was never a part of it, but looking back on it, I wish I had a chance. Yeah, it was a very interconnected program. And I think that the relationships you built with people in there kind of reflect the school as a whole. Those relationships existed outside of Smith program as well. And I think I was able to make lots of different friends. And as Ryan mentioned, the school's very diverse, and I made friends from all over the world. And my friend group, I don't think there's a certain one of us that would, like, I think we all come from different places. So our worldview is slightly different. So I learned from people, right? And I'm learning that those things kind of developed who I am today. And the teachers, although they're masked in person right now, their personality themselves, they're not masked. They are true, and you can tell it by the way they teach and the way that when you talk to them. And building that whole Metro family, as Ryan mentioned earlier as well, that's really what made it different. I think that makes Metro a different place. And in sports too, I think I played multiple sports. I don't think there was a sports team that I can think of that I wasn't really involved. But I played multiple different sports, and my friends were my teammates, and my coaches were my teachers, and the environment. And it was a very competitive sports team, sports program as well. I don't think there's ever games where I felt like we weren't at a competitive level with other schools. So connecting all these pieces together, that Metro family, and that exists in extracurriculars and in the classroom, really is what makes it a different school.
Great, thanks. Very good, very good. We'll move on to question 3. Well, since you're here, Luca, and you're in the flow, we'll go with you, all right? If the school were to be, this is a cool one, if the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be like in 3 words only? What's Metro's personality in 3 words?
I'll go one by one with the words. So the first word I can think of is open. As I keep mentioning, Metro is a very open environment, open to different perspectives, open to different learning styles. and open to different experiences. And when you piece all those together, you get one truly unique learning experience that I think that's taken me to where I am today and has a huge part on how I learn today. The next word I would use is resourceful. Metro, I always felt that I was getting the best education I could get. And I looked at it now, and my first year of courses, I was learning about topics that I've already learned at Metro, which is something I don't think I'd really expect. I was learning some topics, I'd be like, oh, I think I learned that in chemistry, or I learned that in calculus. So that was very unique. And the last question I would actually, the last word I would use is loving. I think that Metro, when you have teachers that care about you as a person, and when you have friends that care about you, and they care about how you do, you don't feel as lost in a school. And I think maintaining that loving environment makes you want to go to school every day. It made me excited to wake up. Waking up at 7 to show up to school, like waking up at 7, showing up to school early, I didn't dread going to school. I loved it. And having that loving, open, and very resourceful environment really was what made Metro great for me.
Thank you. What about you, Stephanie? What are 3 words to describe the personality of Metro if they were a person?
The first one I would say is caring. I know that's very similar to Luca's word using loving, but I think it's really important to emphasize that. You build genuine relationships with the faculty as well as the students when you're there. And that's incredibly important to know that the teachers, everyone, teachers, like any faculty, any students, they all want to see you succeed and be your best self in a very genuine way. So definitely caring. I would also say unique. I know all of us kind of touched on how Metro is very different. But that's what makes it Metro, is how unique it is from any other school. When someone asks me about my high school experience, it's so hard to explain briefly because it's just such a unique experience. And when I do explain it to people, they just can't believe that that was the high school experience that I got. How much I loved it and how much I loved talking about Metro. And the last word I would say is focused, although although it is like a very like caring, loving environment, and it does feel like a home away from home. Everyone is very focused because it is supposed to prepare you for university. So everyone uses their study halls to get work done, and all the teachers are there late after school, early in the mornings. You can go in on your spares to ask them questions. So everyone there is very focused on what they want to get done.
Good. Thank you. Great answers. Okay, just to stay on track, I know it seems like, okay, next question. But I'm going to go to Joanna before we move on to question 4, because she's good with this. Joe, what are 3 words that come to mind and you can't repeat? Caring, loving, unique, focused, resourceful, and what was the other one? Open. 3 words.
I wrote 3. Obviously, I got a pen and I wrote because I didn't see it familiar. I'm prepared. So I wrote 3 words down, and I guess sometimes, but I'm going to explain them a little bit differently. Number 1, I have to say passionate, and that's not about the students; it's about the faculty. Again, I'm going back to my original statement. The way a teacher teaches within their discipline is incredible, and their passion and their dedication to their subject matter, and like it is who they are. It's not just what they do. When you get a chance to watch Ryan's, like, I can't act, I can't sing, I can't do any of it, but I do my best to be a part of those things. If I'm making a poster or going to the dollar store for the 800th time, do that because all you want to do, you want to be a part of something that incredibly special. And that just comes from passion. Diverse, not just diverse in our aesthetic, which is important, diverse in our ideas, in political stances, the arguments and discussions that we can have with students, with parents, with faculty is incredible. It's all done with respect, but it's all done with the full weight of each person's beliefs and perspective. And I can't imagine a better educational environment. I can't. I wouldn't want to go anywhere where you have automatons of people preaching the same stuff over and over again, no matter where you go. That's just, it's not the real world, and it's not helping anybody. And the last thing, and Steph, I guess it's kind of close, but driven, not only again by the faculty, but the students and the amount of work they'll put in. For example, I'll let my kids submit work early, so that I can give feedback and I can hand it back to them. I'm not going to give them a grade because sometimes they're too happy with like an 82. They're like, oh, I'm good with that, I'm not going to fix it. But so that learning process can actually happen. What I've been astounded by are how many times they'll hand that in. Oh, okay, I made these corrections. Here, look at it again. Here, look at it again. And it's that process that a lot of kids would never do in a million years. They wouldn't have the time management for it, nor would they take it upon themselves to do that kind of learning. And I don't know how else learning happens, especially in the social sciences, without that constant feedback process. So those are my three.
Great, thank you. Very good. All right, question 4. Luca, we'll start with you. This is a tricky one, and I want you to be honest. I know I've given you the question ahead of time. This is going very well, but keep that honesty going, because that's what we're all about. What's one thing you'd change about the school, about Metro, if you could choose something to change? What's something you'd like to see change?
So this kind of has to do with how having my experience and going through the first 2 years of university, or in my second year, and then coming back and seeing what I could have used more of. And I think I touched on it a bit in high school, which was, as Joanna mentioned, like the very deep conversations and the debates almost with teachers on topics. The classrooms has lots of it, but like I almost would have loved even more. I think after school programs related to sitting down with teachers and having discussions on real world, like big topics and like the news, right? The current topics. I think taking it outside of the classroom and getting rid of the whole like marks, and I think taking even deeper and just getting their perspectives, I think that was something I would have appreciated even more of.
I think that's what happens when you take all the sciences and you don't take
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, that sounds like my
that's
world
what I
issues
just heard.
course.
I should have
Luca.
taken the subtext. I should have
Should have taken world issues and politics.
fine.
No, that's a good one.
Gotcha.
That is a good point. We've had a debate team, throughout the years, depending on the year and depending on the student's interest. But that's a really good point, Luca, that one of the drawbacks to every student's education in Ontario is that at such a young age, you have to choose a route. And at Metro, I feel like we're very open to changing that route at the very last minute. We just had a student arrive this year. They applied on the auspices of going into business and economics. And when they got to the school, they informed us that no, they have changed their mind. They want to do art history, drama, music. And we switched their entire curriculum, well, suited. And it was a lot of organization and switching things around, but that's what the student wanted. It's not necessarily what the father wanted or the mother wanted. It's what the student wanted. And then we spoke with the parents, and it's worked out. So there is that pressure for a student to choose sciences or the arts and humanities. And it's really tricky when you're in grade 11 to know what you want to do. So we're open to that change, and that's a positive thing. However, once you do choose that science stream, you miss out. Like Luca was in Lord of the Flies when he was in grade 8, and he was great in it. And he took some drama, and then that was it. Every time drama or world issues or philosophy or Joanna's politics was offered, he was taking, calculus or data or physics and chemistry, and it served him well. So basically what you'd like to see, Luca, is basically the teachers stay longer than we already do, and we have more classes. talking with you about what's going on in the world. And you know what? That's actually the best answer I could have heard. That you just basically wanted to spend more time with us, learning more about what's really going on in the world. And you know, what an answer. Can't get better than that. What about you, Stephanie? What's something you change besides the bathrooms at the old school? What?
I remember like making you like trying to just change those washrooms so many times. I'm so glad that the girls' washrooms at the new school are so much nicer.
Good.
I know you gave us the questions beforehand, but I couldn't think of anything. I guess just off the top of my head, is that when I was there, there were a lot more guys than there were girls. And so there weren't many, like the girls' sports teams weren't taken as seriously as the guys were. By grade 12, like when we got Joanna to be the coach for volleyball, it got like taken a lot more seriously. We did a lot of lines and a lot of like pushing wooden planks if we were late. But yeah, I wish that like there were a lot more like girls sports teams and more practices and just getting involved more in that.
When you were younger, yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things that all schools go through when you have an enrollment and all of a sudden one year it's lopsided, right? Like this year, I'd probably say that I have more female students in my class than male. It depends on the year. But certainly I know when you started, yeah, like you were in a class with Luca, Abdu, Christian, and it was you and Safa, and then Lauren joined. So yeah, in Haikun. So yeah, it depends on the year, but that's a good point. And that is something that parents need to think about. If their student or their child is really socially driven and they need lots of people around them, one of the things that Metro says right off the top is that's not our job. Our job is not to make sure that your child has lots of friends and the same people they knew from their old school. Our job is to make them leaders. Our job is to make them confident in themselves and to make friends that they never thought they could make, to reach out to the kid who's older or younger. That's our job. We can't transport all of the previous friends and experiences into Metro. It doesn't work that way. And any school that tells you they can, I think will disappoint that family. So it's the most common question we get. How many students are going to be in the class? Will my son have friends? Stephanie, did anyone really in your grade graduate without friends?
No.
No. And how many kids were in your grade 7 class?
12 of us, maybe?
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Something like
So,
that.
Yep. Yeah. I think it was actually 10, but there you go.
It made me become friends with people who I'd never expected to be friends with. And now they're some of they're family to me now.
That's right. So speaking of families, I'll give this to you, Steph. What would families find most surprising about Metro? And try to, maybe something that we haven't talked about. What's something they'd find surprising?
I know we talked about it, but again, just how I briefly said how it's a home away from home. And even though Metro's recently moved locations, and I know that I think this is the Metro's 3rd time moving, isn't it?
Yes.
Metro's 3rd time moving, and even though it's had to move locations, it's still super homey and super comforting and loving. And even when I've gone to visit the new location, even though it was my first time walking in and never seeing this building before, I still felt at home. And it made me realize it wasn't because of the building. Like Brian's told me before, it's not the building, it's the people in it.
Did I say that?
Yeah, he told me that.
Sounds pretty good. So. Okay, I'm going to go to Sue because she hasn't said much. What about you, Sue? What do you think families would find most surprising about Metro?
I'm going to piggyback on Steph's home away from home, just because that is one of the things about Metro that is so different, where, you have kids in a normal year, they're coming to the school super early. They want to be at the school Friday night. They don't want to leave. Like, when the school was open in pre-pandemic time, we were open before 7 and closing at 7 every night, and you'd find the school still full of kids in different areas of the school doing their own thing, whether they're in the gym or the library area, cafeteria, or teachers' classrooms. They just didn't want to leave. That to me struck me, because I know when I was in high school, I don't remember that in my high school. I remember, especially for example, on a Friday, 3:30 hits, everyone's gone. And at Metro, we're they're like, nobody's going home. Like, so
We're actually
that to me-
telling them to go home. We're saying, would you go? It's Friday. What are you doing? Go
Well,
home.
Luca would have us running a whole separate educational program.
Yeah, apparently it's philosophy on Fridays at 4 with Luca. Yeah.
Well, and even now, like even this year, the kids are like, can we have like a Friday after school program? Like, I know we want to try to like finish up and everybody be out for 5 so the cleaning can happen. And like, but we should just do an after school program. Like, can we do something? And it's that constant and it's accommodating. And that's the thing, right? We give in to the kids. We want to make them happy. They're always the first thing that we're always thinking about, right? And like, this would be a really great idea. Okay, let's try to set this up. And that's what we do.
Yeah. I'll just add to that. I think what I find most surprising about the school is kind of some of the things Sue said. One, how far people live away from the school. And now that we're in a new location, which is even more centralized too, we're right by the 401 and the DVP is close, and we've got bus stops right in front, subways. And so the location's great, but people are they're coming from Brampton, they're coming from Pickering. I come in from Hamilton. For 10 years, I've been driving from Hamilton. I'm not from Hamilton. That's how much I love it. And it surprises me the lengths that students will go to get to our school on a daily basis. But the thing that surprises me most about Metro Prep is Wayne McKelvey, our principal. He is just a rebel in so many ways. And when I went to him about doing a New York trip back in, I think, 2003, and said I wanted to take the kids to Broadway, he went on some rant about, New York City being, not the greatest place, because it used to be better when back in the day. Everything's always back in the day. But he said, sure, Guy, if the kids want to go, bring me a plan, no problem. And there was no pomp and circumstance to it. There was no, meeting with 8 people and everything had to go through a committee. He said, if you want to take them and you're going to plan the trip, go for it. And then every year for 15 years straight, we took the kids to New York City. And on top of that, we've been to Kenya and Tanzania and Ecuador and Boston and Chicago and different ski trips. And I think one year they went to France. The French teacher went to France years ago. The travel aspect of Metro, I think, is kind of surprising when I talk to some of my friends who are teachers in other schools, and they're very jealous of the students and the staff at our school to get to have those opportunities. And that comes from Wayne's openness. He thinks travel is a way to see the world and learn, and he doesn't worry. Like I think we all have to be concerned, and we're safe and all of that, but I'm not getting those phone calls every day. Did you scotch tape the door at 12 o'clock so if the kid tries to leave the room, you knew they tried to sneak out? Things like that would go on at other schools where they're very strict. To work in a place like that, that's why teachers don't want to do the trips, because there's so much red tape, right? And at Metro, we're given that autonomy and that trust. And when you have that trust, you take it seriously. And that really surprised me that I'm on a plane to Africa with people, out of the blue. it's something that I hold dear to the school. And what about you, Luca? What do you find most surprising about Metro?
I'm going to touch base on two things you kind of briefly mentioned and talk about it from like a student's perspective. You talked about walking into Wayne's office and bringing up trip ideas and out of the blue and his openness. From a student's perspective, I remember hundreds of occasions where I just walked into his office, sat down on the couch and just started talking to him. And I think that kind of idea, I talked to some of my friends now that didn't go to Metro. I told them, yeah, I used to sit down in my principal's office. We'd sit and just talk whenever I had a break, and then I'd just leave whenever. And I think they're all like, what? You just went, had a regular conversation, whatever, like talk topics, whatever you want to talk about with him. Like, that's just something I don't think you find anywhere else. And it's very surprising. And another thing, I think we talked a lot about it, I think, but we talk about how the relationship between teachers and students is very like mutual. It's like a first name basis, very relaxed, but the learning aspect it's when school's on, you're focused, you're getting work done. And then outside school, you're having conversations. And I think building on top of that when you're having those conversations, Ryan touched on this trust aspect. And when you give students trust to talk to students on a first name basis, and you're giving them responsibility to go about and take hold of their knowledge and their learning, you kind of feel like, when I feel like someone hopes that I take charge of my own learning, I actually do. I don't feel like I'm being pushed. I feel like I have to push myself. And that kind of, when I get into the real world, no one's going to be pushing me to go after jobs or go learn extra things. It's going to be my own drive. And I think when you give students the ability to, when you give them a platform that makes them develop their own drive, that's something that I think is great. And I don't think you really would expect that.
So Luca, if someone was coming into Metro for the first time and they're entering the school, what advice would you give them? What's one thing you'd say to them?
I would recommend to them that they go in with a clean slate. I think that going in with an open mind and opening your mind to how you learn, how you think, and the way you talk to people, I think just wiping away previous memories and taking those experiences, but holding the experiences and approaching Metro and talking to wonderful teachers like Ryan and Joanna and amongst others, going to talk to Sue about recommendations of where you want to go with your future. I think taking those experiences from the past, and then going with a clean slate and talking to people and making new friends and combining all of that, you'll get the most out of Metro. I think with me, if I could have gone back, I would have done exactly that. And I may have ended up exactly where I am now. I think that where I am now, I'm happy with where I am. And I think Metro is one of the big reasons I am where I am. And I think that, if you go in with a clean slate, you'll get the most out of Metro. Long story short.
Thanks, man. Steph, what about you? If you were talking to say a girl in grade 8 who's thinking of coming to Metro for grade 9, what would you tell her?
I would tell her to, what we said in Ecuador, take it all in. Enjoy everything that Metro has to offer. If someone comes up to you and asks you if you want to join this team or join this club after school or help with set design or help with anything, say yes to it. Because anytime when I started doing that, that's when, those are some of my best memories from Metro, is when, like, yes, I enjoyed all the classes, but those outside things is what made Metro for me. And so if someone were to come to Metro, I would say, if you have the time to, and someone asks you, or say yes to it and just go for it, because maybe you're not good at a sport, or maybe you didn't picture yourself doing like acting or drawing or like joining any sort of club. Just try it out, and it may be something you love, and it could be something that leads you past Metro.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Before we go to questions from the parents, one of the words I kept hearing from Joanna, myself, and Sue is kids. And some of my friends who work in schools or teachers or in administration, I say that word around them. And I've been told a few times over the years, it's funny how you call the students kids. You know, we're told call them students or pupils. And that's what I think makes us different, is they are our kids. And that's these two anyway, for sure. They're our kids. There's so many moments we've shared, the five of us. We could go on and on, but we can't, because you know this is a timed event. We could talk about things till the cows come home, as they say. And I'd just like to thank Stephanie and Luca for all your honest answers. Those were great answers, and felt like you know, we're doing our job. Makes me feel really good. I'm sure Joanna and Sue feel the same. And of course, thank you to Sue and Joe, especially to Sue, for setting this all up. So if there's parents, I know there's Allison and Jeff and Tal are with us now. Is there any questions you'd like to ask either Stephanie, Luca directly, or myself, or Joanna or Sue? Just go right ahead. And if not, no worries. Maybe we've covered it all. Hi, Allison. Are you speaking?
Hi, I'm sorry. At the classic, I didn't take myself off mute, which by now it should be like a crime.
No.
People should be used to this by now.
I couldn't hear anything.
Good. I just wanted to thank Luca, Stephanie, and Joanna, and Sue, and yourself for being here tonight. As you know, obviously I toured the school with Evan, and Evan's dad Jeff is joining the line. I think that one of the questions that I have, and it was so great to hear it from a student's perspective, because obviously, like as a parent, those wonderful things that Stephanie and Luca were saying, Joanna were saying about the school, you know, really resonate with us. There's all kinds of kids that you know, come into a school like this, and I think you're going to have your overachievers and your high achievers, and then you may have your, you know, reluctant learners, or learners that students who don't know where they want to go. And I'm just wondering if what that environment is like for a student who, you know, doesn't, like Luca, I think you went in for sciences and probably stuck with that. You mentioned there was a student that changed from sort of business to history. And I think in our case with our son, if I can get specific, and sorry to the other parents on this call, but if, you know, I don't know if he knows what he wants to do and where he wants to be. And so, you know, is this, you know, is that a typical environment or for him, or are most students coming in to Metro Prep with kind of a sense of, you know, who they are and what they want to become already?
Steph, why don't you answer that one?
Laughing. So I had zero clue what I wanted to do until teachers started asking me, and every year they would ask me, so what are you thinking? What do you want to do? And every year I was like, I don't know. And then Sue sat me down in grade 12 and she was like, okay, we need to apply for schools now. Like, it's finally grade 12. You've had 6 years. What do you want to do? And even at that time, I was like, I don't know. And something I've always been very passionate about is visual arts. And so I was like, why don't I apply to universities just for fine arts and go from there? And I got into Guelph. I went there, realized that it wasn't for me. It's not what I wanted to do. So I left Guelph and then went back as soon as I dropped out. And I mean, my friend picked me up from university and I drove straight to Metro. I didn't even go home first to unpack my stuff. I went into Metro with all my stuff in the car still and went down and sat with Ryan and was like, I dropped out. And obviously was like a little disappointed, but after talking to them more and taking some time off, I figured out what I wanted to do. And so now I'm going to be going to school next September with a clear idea of what I wanted to do. But even after I left Metro, I still had that support. I emailed Sue figuring out how to apply, what I can do in the meantime. Yeah, just so to answer your question, not every student knows what they want to do, where Luca knew from grade 7 what he wanted, where some of us don't.
I think Luca's a bit of an exception. I don't Luke is not necessarily the rule, right? I mean, I have a lot of kids and we do a careers class that we have to do in grade 10. And I think it's hysterical. I think it's hilarious that we sit down a 15-year-old and ask them to tell me what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And I've told Stephanie and I've told Luca, like the amount of kids, even that they think they know what they're going to do and the amount of times they'll change it, whether it's at high school or whether it's once they get into university, right? I think that Metro, what I liked about it best about Metro, and one of the questions was, what do you find surprising, or what advice would you give? I would give the advice to any student: try to figure out who you are. Try everything you can possibly try. Take something from every course you can possibly take, even if you struggle with it. But if you're passionate about it, we'll find teachers and students to help you succeed in it until you find something that's your thing. And I think it's very unique that Luke is rolling up into grade 7 knowing he wants to go into medicine. That's very unique, and he'll do amazing things. But I think for the most part, that's what high school's for, or it's what it should be for. It should be for all of the openness and all of the options laid at their feet, and try to make them feel the most comfortable they could possibly feel, to engage with as much diversity as they can possibly engage with.
And I think I'd like to say that I think, like, obviously Luca's situation is pretty rare. I think most students, even when I'm working with them in grade 12, a lot of them are not 100% sure, so we're applying to a variety of different options. I think it's more about trying to keep your options open, right? Identifying what your passions are, what your interests are, and then trying to keep those doors open so that when you do get to grade 12 and we're looking at options for the future, you have different avenues that you can pursue.
Well, Luca and Stephanie are both exceptions to the rule. I would say that's for sure. Allison, I would say I met Evan and I met you last week, and it was a pleasure, actually. And I appreciate the email you sent about your tour. I think I told you this that night. I just feel that the vibe I got from Evan was something I felt hundreds of times. So there's lots of kids that have come to our school that had that feel and those questions, even the look in his eyes. He had a bit of wonder, and he couldn't believe maybe the fact that some of the answers we were giving him, or how we were even speaking to him in a casual way. So that's a great question, though. Like, what happens to the kid who shows up at Metro not knowing anyone? For the first week or two, sure, it's cards on the table. It's going to be weird because Metro is different. And then usually you start hearing things at the dinner table. Well, my teachers are really nice, and oh, we did this, and Wayne called me down today and talked to me about aliens. And it I know that sounds weird, but it builds and it builds, and then before you know it, there's Mark's got Evan doing this in the gym, and Mackenzie's teaching him how to bench press, and I've got him learning guitar. And then Sue's like, so grade 10 next year, got to start thinking about it's a really nervous time when you're choosing a school. I would say that just relax about the social aspect and think more about how it's going to affect your family. Like, is Metro close enough to is it going to disrupt your everyday? Is he losing a lot of friends, or are a lot of his friends going to another school? How's that going to affect him? And I would say that to any parent. You got to think about how it's going to affect your family, because we're not here to make it harder for you. We want Metro to be like, oh, thank God our daughter or our son is at that school, not Metro, oh, here we go again, got to drive this far and it's not worth it. And that's not what we're about. So we're not really looking for stress or to cause any kind of stress to a family. So I would say that the answers that have been given, and then just to reiterate, every year is different and every student's different. Our job is to figure out who that boy or girl is. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes we've had situations where the boy is then deciding they might want to be a girl. And I don't think there's a school in Toronto that deals with that better than we do. We are as modern as you can get, and we are as progressive as you can get in a lot of ways. But we've got those traditional teaching values. So it's a very diverse and inclusive place. I don't think there's any student that's come through to Metro that left our school, and when I said, why are you leaving? They said, I can't fit in here. I've never heard that. Have you heard that, Sue? I'm being honest. I've never heard I don't fit in, or I can't make friends. I don't know anyone. That's not it. It's usually, well, my dad got a job in Alberta, or yeah, we're moving, or it's things like that, you know. I think I'm making sense on that. Would you agree, Sue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. We're at 8 o'clock, but I'm willing to stay on for a little bit if there's any more questions. Jeff, did you have a question, or Tal, do you have a question?
I just want to say thanks very much to everyone for giving up your evening. This has been really informative and great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, I was just going to say the exact same thing as Tal just said. That was wonderful hearing from all of you. Thank you very much for your time. That was amazing. Luca and Stephanie, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was very helpful.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Okay, guys. Well, listen, Steph and Luca, I wish I could say come visit anytime, but if you want to come visit the school and just say hi, we can do a socially distanced hello on the front lawn under the oak tree. So seriously, we can. Like, there's no issues with that. We just can't have what do we call them, non-essential people in the building right now. I do consider you essential, but the government doesn't. So if you wanna come by and say hi, just let me know. I think your brother Stephanie is coming by on Monday to bring me a David Bowie book, because it's Metro and that's what alumni do. What did he graduate 3 years ago? 4?
3, yeah.
Yeah, bringing me a David Bowie book. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, especially to you and Luca, for doing this. Amazing to see you and see how you've matured. It really does make me feel amazing. And thank you to Sue and Joe.